Maybe you've been feeling it lately. Not just tired, not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. You wake up already heavy. You move through the day carrying something invisible, but very real. And even when the house is quiet, when you finally lie down, your soul still feels restless, still weighted. Have you noticed it too? That quiet ache deep inside that doesn't have a name yet? And maybe, in the middle of ordinary moments, a small, honest question has started whispering in your heart. Why does this season feel so exhausting? What if this exhaustion isn't meaningless? What if it's actually trying to tell you something important? Something you've been too tired to hear until now. But let's go one layer deeper for a moment. It's one thing to feel exhausted. It's another thing entirely to look up and quietly ask the hardest question. Why would God let me feel this way? If He really is the one guiding my steps, if He really does see every tear, every sleepless night, then why would He allow a whole season where I wake up already empty, where every day feels like pushing a boulder uphill and the boulder never gets smaller? You've probably asked it in different words, right? God, if you love me, why does everything feel so heavy right now? If you're in control, why does my strength keep disappearing when I need it most? If you're good, why this long stretch of just surviving? And here's where it gets painfully honest. Most of us stop the question right there. We feel guilty for even asking, or we rush to answer it ourselves with quick Christian cliches. Just trust more. Pray harder. This too shall pass. But what if those quick answers are actually keeping us from the real answer? What if this exhaustion isn't God being distant, but God being incredibly close, in a way we haven't recognized yet? Because here's the thing most people miss. This kind of soul-deep tired, it's rarely random. It's rarely just life being hard. What if God actually allows or even designs certain seasons of exhaustion for a purpose so deep, so personal, that we can only see it when we finally stop running long enough to listen? And maybe, just maybe, the very exhaustion you're feeling right now is the first clue to that purpose. Let's stay here for a second. Really look at what this exhaustion actually feels like. Have you noticed it's not the same as being physically worn out after a long day? You can sleep 8 hours, 10 hours even, and still wake up feeling like you never really rested. Why is that? Because this tired lives somewhere deeper. It's the kind of tired that comes from carrying things that no one else can see. What are you carrying right now? Maybe it's the weight of responsibilities that never seem to lighten, bills that keep coming, a job that demands more than you have left to give, family needs that pull at you from every direction, or maybe it's the quieter things, the expectations you put on yourself or the ones other people quietly placed on you years ago, and you've been trying to live up to them ever since. Have you ever stopped to count how many shoulds are living inside your chest? I should be stronger. I should be more patient. I should have it together by now. And then there are the ones that hurt the most, the ones you don't say out loud, unanswered prayers, dreams that keep getting delayed, relationships that feel stuck or slowly fading, moments of disappointment so quiet, you almost convince yourself they don't matter. But they do matter, and over months, years, those little heart weights add up. They don't scream. They don't make a scene. They just stay pressing, draining, until one day you realize your emotional battery isn't just low. It's been running on empty for longer than you admitted. Does that sound familiar? That moment when even small things feel heavy, when joy feels distant, When even worship or prayer starts to feel like another task on the list? Here's the part most people don't want to say out loud. This kind of exhaustion isn't laziness. It's not lack of faith. It's not you failing at life. It's your soul saying, I've been carrying this alone for too long. But what if that very feeling, the heaviness, the drain, the I can't do this anymore, isn't the end of the story? What if it's actually the beginning of God showing you something you couldn't see while you were still trying to hold everything together? Because sometimes the deepest pain isn't the exhaustion itself. It's what the exhaustion is finally revealing about what your heart has been protecting or trying to fix all by itself. Now, I want to stay with you here for a moment because there's something about this exhaustion that most people never quite name. You've probably tried to explain it to yourself before, right? I just need more sleep. I just need a vacation. I just need things to slow down for a little while. And then you get the sleep. You take the trip. Things do slow down, but we're for a weekend, maybe even a week. And yet, you come back and it's still there. That same heaviness sitting right where you left it. Why is that? Here's something worth considering. There are two very different kinds of tired. There's the tired that lives in your muscles, the kind a good night's sleep actually fixes. You push hard, you rest, you recover. That's the system working the way it should. But then there's the other kind, the kind that doesn't live in your body at all. It lives in the part of you that never fully clocks out. Your mind, the one that keeps running through the same conversations at midnight, replaying what you said, rehearsing what you should have said, calculating what could go wrong tomorrow. Your heart, the one that's been holding quiet grief, quiet disappointment, quiet fear, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, without a safe place to set any of it down. Your spirit, the one that keeps showing up for everyone else, keeps staying strong, keeps saying, I'm okay, long after okay stopped being true. That kind of tired, sleep doesn't reach it because the drain isn't physical. It's the weight of everything you've been carrying on the inside, invisibly, continuously, often alone. Let me ask you something. When you lie down at night, does your mind actually stop, or does it shift from the to-do list of the day to the worry list of tomorrow? From, did I do enough today, to, what if this doesn't work out, to how much longer can I keep pretending I'm fine? That loop, the one that runs even when your body is still, that's not weakness. That's not a lack of faith. That's what happens when a person has been under quiet, sustained pressure for a long time, without real relief. Psychologists call it emotional exhaustion, the core of what burnout actually is. Not just doing too much, but carrying too much for too long without enough support, enough rest, enough space to process what's actually happening inside. Sorry. And here's what makes it so hard to catch. It doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly, like water seeping into a wall. Invisible at first, until one day the whole structure feels unstable and you're not even sure when it started. Have you noticed the signs? The way small decisions feel disproportionately heavy. The way joy feels slightly out of reach, like it's there, but behind glass. The way things that used to energize you now just feel like more to manage. That's not laziness. That's not spiritual failure. That's your inner system sending a very clear signal. Something needs to change. I can't keep running like this. And here's the part that actually matters most. When we ignore that signal, when we push through with more coffee, more discipline, more, I just need to be stronger, the depletion doesn't pause, it deepens. because the message doesn't go away just because you refuse to listen to it. But when you finally stop long enough to hear it, that's when something shifts. Not because the circumstances changed, but because you stopped pretending the weight wasn't real. And here's what I find quietly remarkable about all of this. This experience, the mind that won't stop, the heart that's carrying too much, the spirit that's been strong for everyone except itself. It's not new. It's not a modern problem. It's not unique to your generation, your season, your particular set of struggles. Some of the strongest people in all of Scripture went through this exact same experience. And one of them, a man who had just witnessed one of the greatest miracles in the entire Old Testament, sat down under a tree shortly after and told God he was done. If emotional exhaustion could touch someone like that, what does it mean for you and me, right now, in the middle of everything we're carrying? And here's where the story gets really personal, because what you're feeling right now, that deep, soul-level exhaustion, that moment when you whisper, "I've had enough," it's not new. It's not just you. Have you ever wondered if even the strongest people in the Bible ever felt this way? Let me take you to one of the most dramatic moments in Scripture, 1 Kings 19. Picture this, Elijah, one of the greatest prophets who ever lived, the man who called down fire from heaven on Mount Carmel, the man who ended a 3.5-year drought with a single prayer, the man who stood alone against 450 false prophets and won. Just one chapter earlier, he was on top of the world, victory, power, God's presence so thick you could feel it. And then everything flipped. Queen Jezebel sent a death threat. She just one message: "By this time tomorrow, you're dead." And Elijah, the fire caller, the miracle worker, ran. He ran for his life. He left his servant behind. He went a full day into the wilderness. And there, under a single broom tree, just a scraggly desert bush, he sat down, collapsed really, and prayed the most honest, broken prayer you'll find in the Bible. He said to God, "It is enough, Lord. I've had enough. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors." Can you hear it? That same whisper you felt in your own heart? I can't do this anymore. Why keep going? What's the point? Even Elijah, the man God used so powerfully, reached the end of his rope. His emotional strength ran out. His faith didn't disappear, but his energy did. He was emotionally exhausted, physically spent, spiritually depleted. After the greatest high came the deepest low. And here's the part that changes everything. What did God do? Did he scold him? Didn't you just see fire from heaven? Where's your faith now? Did he shame him? Get up, prophet. Stop being weak. Did he ignore him? No. God did something so gentle, so tender. It still surprises people when they read it. While Elijah slept under that broom tree, an angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat." God sent food, fresh bread baked on hot stones, a jar of water. Elijah ate, drank, and fell back asleep. The angel came again. "Get up and eat, because the journey is too much for you." Think about that for a second. The God of the universe, who could have thundered from heaven, who could have sent lightning or angels' armies. Instead, he met Elijah exactly where he was, exhausted, hungry, broken. And God's first response wasn't a sermon. It wasn't a command. It was care, physical care, rest, nourishment, strength for the next step. But the story doesn't end under the tree. Elijah ate, and in the strength of that food, traveled 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. There, in a cave, God spoke to him again, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a gentle whisper. And God asked the question that cut straight to the heart. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah poured it all out. "I've been very zealous for you, but everyone else has turned away. I'm the only one left, and now they want to kill me too." And God's response? He didn't dismiss the pain. He didn't rush Elijah back to work. He listened. He corrected gently. He reminded Elijah he wasn't alone. There were 7,000 others who hadn't bowed to Baal. And then he gave him rest, renewal, and a new purpose. So here's the question for you right now. If God met Elijah in his exhaustion, with tenderness instead of judgment, with bread and water instead of blame, with a whisper instead of a storm, what might he be doing in your exhaustion right now? Now, let's go back to Elijah for just one more moment. He's under the broom tree, completely done. He's told God out loud, "I've had enough, take my life." And here's the part I want you to sit with. What did God say back? Did he say, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you respond"? Did he say, "Get up, stop being weak, you're embarrassing yourself"? Did he open the sky with thunder and remind Elijah of every miracle he'd already seen? No. God said nothing. He just let him sleep. Why would the God who commands wind and fire choose silence and rest? Why would the one who could have thundered, "Stand up, prophet," instead send an angel to quietly touch his shoulder and say, "Hey, eat something"? What if that choice, that specific, gentle, and unhurried response wasn't an accident? What if it was actually the point? Because here's the twist most people miss when they read the story. We look at Elijah under that tree and we think, this is his lowest moment. This is where he failed. But what if that's completely backwards? What if the broom tree wasn't the place where Elijah fell apart, but the place where God finally had room to rebuild him? Because here's what I've noticed. In Scripture and in real life, God does some of his deepest work in the seasons we most want to escape. Think about it. Before the broom tree, Elijah was running on fire, literally calling down flames, outrunning chariots, standing alone against hundreds. He was operating at the absolute limit of human strength, maybe even beyond it. And that kind of running, it leaves no room, no stillness, no space for anything new to grow. But under the tree, everything stopped. The adrenaline was gone. The mission felt over. The performance was finished. And in that emptiness, God could finally get close. Can I ask you something honest? When was the last time you were still enough for God to actually get close? Not in a hurried morning prayer before the day swallowed you whole. Not in a worship song you sang while your mind was somewhere else, but really still, really quiet, really empty enough to receive. Because sometimes exhaustion isn't God pulling away from you. Sometimes it's God finally getting the quiet he needed to do something in you that the noise kept interrupting. Maybe he's been trying to dismantle something that was never meant to carry you this far, a version of yourself built on performance, on proving, on holding it all together so no one sees the cracks. And maybe, just maybe, the only way to take that apart gently was to let you get tired enough to stop holding it up yourself. Which of those feels closest to where you are right now? Are you tired from doing too much? Or are you tired from being someone you were never supposed to be for longer than you can remember? Here's what's remarkable about the Elijah story. After the tree, after the food, after the sleep, God doesn't send him back to do the same thing. He doesn't say, "Okay, you're rested. Go back to Mount Carmel. Call down more fire." He says, "Get up. and the journey ahead is too much for you. And then he gives him new direction, a new path, a new name to anoint, a successor. The season under the tree didn't just restore Elijah's energy, it redirected his entire calling. So what if your exhaustion isn't just asking you to rest, but asking you to reconsider? Not to give up, but to let go of the version of your life you've been white-knuckling your way through and receive the quieter, truer one God has been trying to hand you all along. Because exhaustion, real soul-level exhaustion, it strips away a lot of things. It strips away the pretending, the performing, the I'm fine. And what's left when all of that falls away? Just you, just God, in a silence that, if you let it, becomes the most honest conversation you've had in years. Remember how God spoke to Elijah on the mountain? Not in the earthquake, not in the fire, not in the roaring wind, in a whisper, a still small voice. Maybe he's been whispering to you this whole time, and maybe this exhaustion is the first season quiet enough for you to finally hear it. And this might explain something very specific about your life right now. So if you've been feeling exhausted lately, I want to say something to you directly. It does not mean you are weak. It does not mean your faith is too small. It does not mean you've been doing life wrong. And it does not mean God has lost track of where you are. What if it simply means your soul has been carrying something it was never designed to carry alone, and for longer than anyone around you realized? Think about a bone that's been fractured. You don't feel it healing. There's no moment where you sense the calcium quietly rebuilding, the tissue slowly knitting back together. It doesn't announce itself. You just rest. You protect it. You stop demanding it carry weight it isn't ready for yet. And one morning, not dramatically, not with fanfare, you reach for something and realize the ache is quieter than it was last week. That's what restoration looks like most of the time. Not a lightning bolt, not a sudden breakthrough at the altar, just quiet faithfulness, day by day, in the ordinary moments you almost didn't notice. And that may be exactly what God is doing in you right now. But here's something I want to ask you, and I want you to really sit with it. Have you actually given yourself permission to receive that? Not just rest your body, but rest the part of you that keeps rehearsing the worries at 2 a.m. The part that wakes up already bracing for the day. The part that's been trying to hold everything together because you're afraid of what happens if you let go, even for a moment. What would it feel like to stop managing it all for just one evening? To bring it, all of it, the unfinished things, the unanswered prayers, the quiet grief, and just set it down at his feet. Not with a polished prayer, not with the right words, just, here, I can't carry this today. You take it. Because here's what I've noticed about real healing. It rarely begins with a grand gesture. It begins with a permission, a small, honest, interior permission. I am allowed to be tired. I am allowed to need help. I am allowed to not have the answers right now. And the moment you stop performing strength you don't have, that's often the exact moment God steps into the space you just made. Maybe for you, healing starts on a quiet Tuesday morning when you sit with your coffee and don't rush to fill the silence. Maybe it's reading one verse, one you've read 100 times before, and this time, something in it lands differently. Like he saved that specific meaning just for this moment in your life. Maybe it's tears that finally fall after weeks of holding them back. And instead of feeling weak, you feel strangely lighter. Because those aren't small things. Those are the moments when the restoration is actually happening, quietly, faithfully, below the surface. While you were convinced nothing was changing, you are not broken beyond repair. You are not a project God gave up on. You are not too far gone, too tired, too complicated, or too late. You are someone who has been strong for a very long time. And right now in this season, God is not asking you to be stronger. He is asking you to be held. And what does being held actually look like? It looks like Elijah, not running, not performing, not proving anything, just sleeping, eating, being tended to by a God who showed up not with demands, but with bread and water, and the journey is too much for you. What if that same God, the one who met him there, is meeting you right now? Not waiting for you to recover first, not standing at a distance until you have it together, but here, in the tiredness, in the confusion, in the quiet of wherever you are listening to this. And if that's true, then this season of exhaustion isn't where your story ends. It's where something real, something that couldn't have been built any other way, is just beginning. And now, let the question linger just a little longer. What if this season you're walking through right now, the one that feels so heavy, so long, so endless, isn't the end? What if one day, maybe months from now, maybe years, you look back at this exact moment and you see something you could never see while you were in the middle of it? You'll see that the place where you thought you were breaking was actually the place where God was quietly, faithfully rebuilding you. Have you ever noticed how the most beautiful things in nature grow out of the hardest ground? A seed has to crack open before it can sprout. A tree's deepest roots go down in the dry seasons. A diamond is formed under pressure that would crush anything else. What if your soul works the same way? Sometimes the most exhausting seasons of life are the very seasons where the deepest transformation begins. Not because the pain is good in itself, but because in the pain, you finally stop long enough to let God do what only He can do. He rebuilds trust where it was shattered. He restores joy where it was buried. He teaches dependence where independence once ruled. He whispers identity where shame once shouted. And slowly, so slowly you almost miss it, strength returns. Not the old frantic strength, but a quieter, steadier one. The kind that comes from knowing you're held, even when you feel like you're falling. What will that future version of you say when she looks back in this tired season? Will she wish it never happened? Or will she whisper thanks because it was here, under the broom tree of your own life, that she learned to hear the gentle whisper again? Because here's the promise that holds everything together. God doesn't waste your weariness. He redeems it. He takes the very thing that made you say, "I've had enough," and turns it into the soil where new life grows. The exhaustion that felt like defeat becomes the doorway to deeper dependence. The nights you cried yourself to sleep become the nights He drew closest. The season you wanted to escape becomes the season you'll one day thank Him for. So if you're still here, still listening, still carrying this heaviness, let this be your quiet hope tonight. You are not stuck. You are being shaped. You are not forgotten. You are being held. Well, you are not breaking for nothing. You are being rebuilt for something beautiful. And one day, when the weight lifts, When the strength returns, when you feel joy again without forcing it, you'll look back and realize this was never the end. This was the beginning of something deeper, something truer, something only God could write. So breathe, rest, trust, because the God who met Elijah with bread and water, the God who spoke in a gentle whisper, is meeting you right now, in this very moment, with the same tenderness, and He's not finished with you yet. Thank you for staying with me through this. If this spoke to something in you today, I'd love for you to do one small thing. Drop a comment below, just a word, a sentence, whatever feels right. And then, before you sleep tonight, bring that one honest thing to God, not a polished prayer, just the truth of where you are, because that's exactly where He meets us. And until next time, may you find rest in the one who never grows tired.